Where did the mono stereo switch go? This question comes from Jack in London, England. Hey, Paul, with the continuing and increasing popularity of vinyl, why don't manufacturers put mono stereo switches on their equipment anymore? I can understand, sort of, why they disappeared for a while after the advent of compact discs, but bring them back. They're so useful. They dramatically reduce surface noise when playing a mono recording with a stereo cartridge, for one thing. And they're also great for summing crude early stereo to mono. I know some purists, like me, will say you should use a mono cartridge, but that's just not practical for most people. And you know, look, you're absolutely right, Jack. Unless you've got two tone arms, which some people do, but you know, most people, they'll play a combination of stereo and mono records, and so they're going to want to have one cartridge, and it's going to be stereo, because obviously a mono cartridge is never going to work on stereo, but a stereo cartridge can work on mono. But that said, as Jack points out, if you use a stereo cartridge on a mono recording, you're going to get more noise and funniness in the way it's reproduced than you would if you had a mono cartridge or a mono switch. So as a manufacturer, as somebody who makes preamps, we no longer put that switch on there. For one thing, it's fairly invasive circuitry-wise. So in order to do that, to have a push button on that, we've got to sum the two channels together, and you can just use a couple of resistors if you want, but it's not a very good way to do it. You need to sum those into a summing junction, which is extra electronics. And for the number of people that are doing it, we just, as a manufacturer, we find that it's for the few that are doing it, it's not worth the potential degradation of the switch and the extra connections and the extra circuitry involved in making that work properly within a preamp. Now, where it does, and that's why we don't do it, and I would imagine plenty of other people have exactly the same ideas. But the proper place for it is in the phono preamplifier. So if you have a separate phono preamplifier, that's the perfect place for a stereo mono switch. And many phono preamplifiers, modern, older ones, they still have stereo mono switches. And there, yeah, you still got to have the same extra circuitry, but at least it's dedicated to something that needs it. Because in general, preamps don't need stereo mono switches. And whether they're, you know, because a preamp's going to play CD sources, phono sources, maybe got a tuner hooked up to it. So I think that's the reason why, and the proper place to put it's in the phono preamplifier. So what I would do, I would just look around for a great phono preamplifier that also has the mono stereo switch. Okay? Good question. Thanks for asking it, Jack, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. We had a bit of rain, so like this whole table's wet. But man, don't you love it after a rain? I love the fresh smell. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.